Hello everybody, we're going to be talking about why the 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning were even better than you think. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you are new to the channel, new to hockey, whatever the case may be. I'd love to have you here along the way as I try to do this as a career. Now let's get started, and this is going to be the little bit of the intro. The 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning will go down in history for a variety of reasons. The good being they had one of the best seasons in NHL history. The bad being that they were swept in the opening round of the playoffs, becoming the best team or one of the best teams to never win the Stanley Cup. But in this video, I really wanted to focus on the good side and emphasize just really how good the Bullets were that season. Now, context. The Lightning had been one of the better teams in the league prior to this season, going to the playoffs 4 out of 5 times in the seasons prior, including 2 trips to the conference finals and then of course 1 trip to the Stanley Cup final in 2015 where they lost to the Chicago Blackhawks in 6 games, and the future looked pretty bright all around. They had a great season as they finished with a record 113-point season prior to this 2018-19 season. Good enough for 3rd most points in the league that season. Nashville won the President's Trophy that year, and I think Winnipeg might have been 2nd, but with the club losing in the Eastern Conference Final to the eventual Washington Capitals, you figured the 2018-19 season was going to be a really good year for Tampa as they had a lot of motivation, and they really probably should have been in that run because I think they ended up giving a few series of leads away to the Capitals. But let's take a look at exactly where this team stands among the league, as well as, probably some smaller stats. So for wins, they had 62, which was tied for the most in NHL history with the 1995-96 Detroit Red Wings. That team, of course, also didn't win the Stanley Cup either. They ended up losing to the Avalanche, I believe, in the playoffs that year. For points, they had 128, 4th all-time in NHL history. Sandwiched between the 1975-76 and 1977-78 Montreal Canadiens, and I'm pretty sure both of those squads won the cup. I know at least the 77-78 team did, but I cannot remember if the 75-76 team did. Now, let's see some categories where the Lightning led the league in. So for wins, they were 1st in the league with 62. The 2nd best team was the Calgary Flames at 50 in that 2nd spot, like I said. Calgary is going to be in the 2nd spot for a lot of stuff. Points, 128. That was, of course, Tampa Bay. Calgary, 107 in that 2nd spot. Goals for 319. Of course, Tampa Bay leading the league there. And then Calgary in that 2nd spot. Again, 289. Goals for differential. You had Tampa Bay being top dog, plus 103. Calgary, ironically again, 2nd place, plus 62. And I wanted to just show the difference here. The LA Kings were 31st, dead last in the league that year because we didn't have the Seattle Kraken yet. They had a goal differential of minus 61. As for goals for per 60, Tampa Bay, 3.84, 1st in the league. Calgary, 2nd place, 3.5. So again, you have a team in Tampa Bay that is leading the league in some pretty substantial categories. And I also think after doing this video, I realized that Calgary, of course, had a really underrated year that season as well. As for goals for percentage, Tampa Bay, 1st in the league, 59.07. Calgary, again, 56.45. There were some other stats too that I wanted to talk about where Calgary wasn't 2nd. Power play goals, Tampa Bay had 74, which was 1st in the league. Florida Panthers, they were 2nd, they had 72. So the 2 teams in Florida were just lighting it up on the power play that season. Power play percentage, you had the Tampa Bay Lightning at 28.2%, 1st in the league. And then the Florida Panthers at 26.8%, 2nd in the league. Shooting percentage, that was again Tampa Bay with the league lead, 12.17%. And of course, they were 1st, and then the Capitals were 2nd in the league at 10.99. Now, individually, there were some things I wanted to highlight about this really good Tampa Bay Lightning squad as well. Nikita Kucherov led the league in scoring with 128 points in 82 games. He had 41 goals, 87 assists, and 1st in the league with that, of course. And McDavid was actually 2nd in the league with assists for 75 that season. So Kucherov had 12 more assists in that season, so really good for him. 2 Lightning players finished in the top 10 in scoring, that being Kucherov at 1st and Stamkos at 9th. Stamkos, I think, put together almost a 100-point season that year. I think it was 98 points in a full 82 games, as well as 3 Tampa Bay players finished top 10 in goals. Stamkos 45, that is 4th. Kucherov 41, that is 6th. And then Braden Point had a really, really good year, underrated year, with 41 goals, which was 9th in the league. Andrei Vasilevsky had an incredible year. We all know that. He actually led the league in wins, 39 wins in just 53 games played. Second place for this was Sergei Bobrovsky with 37 wins in 62 games played. So he had 2 less wins and he had more games played. He had 9 more games played. So you can see that's a pretty big differential there. The club also had 11 players with 10 plus goals. Nikita Kucherov, of course, won the Hart Trophy, just a second player in franchise history, the other being Martin St. Louis. And then Andrei Vasilevsky won the Vezina. He actually had 18 wins out of his final 21 starts. And like I said earlier, led the league in wins. John Cooper, head coach for the Bolts, was a finalist for the Jack Adams Award, didn't end up winning it, but this year is a year that it was just kind of a narrative where it was Barry Trotz and Craig Berube. Of course, that year the Blues were off to a terrible start through January. Then they turned it around, eventually won the Stanley Cup that season. But then Barry Trotz, I think this was also his first year in New York, turned them around pretty quick. So even though Cooper had a lot of wins, I think a lot of people viewed it as his roster was really good. Whereas I can't remember if Trotz or Berube won it this year, but both of those guys kind of were viewed as having these underrated teams that they had do really well. As for some miscellaneous facts, the Lightning had 4 different win streaks of at least 7 games this year. The last place Ottawa Senators actually finished the year with just 29 wins. So yeah, you had the Sens finishing with 29 wins, whereas Tampa Bay had 4 win streaks that would give them more wins than the Senators would have all year. So that was kind of a fun fact there. The Bolts had twice as many points as the Senators that season as well. Tampa Bay had 128, and then the Ottawa Senators had just 64. That was a bad year for the Sens. Obviously a great year for the Bolts. The Boston Bruins finished second in the league, tied second for points, and still finished 21 points back of that lead in the division. For the Lightning, of course, they won the Atlantic, and then Andrei Vasilevsky received 28 of 31 votes, first place votes for the Vezina. I mean, this is just some stuff that you look at and you think, holy cow. Now, ultimately, Tampa Bay did not win the title that year. Instead, the best team in the league squared off with a very underrated wildcard team, the Columbus Blue Jackets. They had made some moves at the deadline, some pretty aggressive moves at the time to try to win in the postseason. You know, Columbus, they shocked the world. It gets me to where I just slowed up my speech there thinking about how crazy of an upset it was. They won game 1, winning 4-3, but it didn't stop there. Just 5 days later, they were able to make probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, upset in NHL history take place, as the Jackets did the unthinkable and swept Tampa Bay at home for their first postseason series victory in franchise history. I don't view it as the biggest upset ever because I look at the Columbus squad and I was biased maybe as a Columbus fan, and I thought we were not as bad as people made us out to be, but it was a very big upset, I will say that. As for some parting thoughts, while the first round exit was very painful, as it really just was, you know, the rug being pulled out from you for Tampa Bay, this was really what they could use, more motivation. This group was tired of being that team that was really, really good, but never got it done when it came to the big moments, never got it done when it mattered most, and they used this first round loss as motivation. It worked too, as literally the next season, the Lightning won in 5 games in the first round against the Blue Jackets, got revenge there. They ended up going on to win their first Stanley Cup since 2004, where they beat the Dallas Stars. Of course, they won the year after that as well, beating the Montreal Canadiens, went to the Stanley Cup the year after that, didn't win it, but this has been a very good run. And I would say that this is just incredible, and they are still one of the best teams in the league currently. I have that opinion, and they are relatively high in the standings, currently 3rd in the division in the Atlantic. I just think that this is really probably one of the weirdest, best things that could happen for a team. But in closing, why did I make this? It's really just because I see a lot of people looking at this team and they say a lot of things that are joking, and they, talk about this team and it's a lot of memes. for good reason. It was funny if you weren't a Tampa Bay fan, unless you had a lot of money riding on your bracket. But this was one thing that I felt like people were really starting to not realize how good of a team this was. And more than anything, I just think that while they didn't win the title during this 2018-19 run, this club deserves a lot of respect. They were one of the best teams in NHL history, fourth most points in a season, and it seems like people just forgot already, even though it's not even been 5 years, how good this core was. And believe it or not, going into that playoffs, everybody thought this was a juggernaut that was going to sweep Columbus, that was going to sweep their second round matchup, that was going to have little trouble in the conference final, and they just really felt like if they got past Boston, I can't remember who Boston played in the first round, but if they got past Boston, they were going to have a pretty good shot to go and just blow everybody out. And so yeah, I think that everyone should just realize that at this point people thought they were unbeatable, and it really took a David versus Goliath scenario to shatter that perception. But of course it all worked out for Tampa Bay as they won back-to-back titles, and they really do look like a better team than years past as they're able to get the job done. But what are your thoughts on the 2018-19 Tampa Bay Lightning? Did you realize how many stats that they were able to put together that were the league best? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you'll love hockey, alright?
Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.